Who does your work have an impact on? Now, we've talked in the past few weeks about what you might be giving up in order to fulfill your dream, what you are not spending time on, who you're not spending time with in order to build the thing you want to build. But what are you creating? Not just what are you sacrificing, but what are you creating? What are you gaining? And how is that impacting others in your life? I want you to fall in love with your dream a little more and get fired up about the amazing impact you're having on the world in today's episode. Welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm. I'm Tara Swiger, and this is episode 258. You can find the entire show notes for this episode along with links to everything I mentioned at taraswiger.com/podcast258. And you know what I realized about episode 258? This month, actually last month, April, the podcast was 5 years old. I started this podcast 5 years ago in 2014. That means I've written and recorded and produced an episode every single week for 5 years. I don't know anything else in my life I've done every single week for 5 years. So yay, that is so exciting. I just wanted to celebrate. I would not keep doing it if it weren't for you guys listening and commenting and sharing that you're listening on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Thank you so much for having been here, whether it's been 5 minutes or it's been 5 years. Thank you. I totally do this for you. And if you want to help me celebrate, here is how you can help me celebrate. You can share the show with your friends. So take a screenshot right now of your phone, how you're listening, or take a picture of whatever you're doing right now when you listen. I freaking love seeing where you all are listening and what you're doing and how you're crafting or making or working or running or washing the dishes when you listen. So when you post that picture on Instagram, post on your stories, post on your Instagram feed, tag me, I'm Tara Swiger, and tag the show. It's hashtag Explore Your Enthusiasm. Be sure you spell enthusiasm right. It's tricky. So leaving reviews also helps others know. If you can't think of anybody you want to share it with, leave a review. A written review tells others why they should tune in, and Apple will actually show it to more people if there's a review. You can do that on iTunes or over on YouTube. You just give the video a thumbs up. That's like a review, and then YouTube shows it to more people. So thank you for doing that so much. And hey, I've actually realized by looking at my stats, tons of you have only ever listened here, wherever it is you're listening, and you've never made it over to my website. So that's a real shame because over on my site, you're going to find the full transcript every week of all the episodes, along with so many free resources, worksheets, workbooks, a free e-course on how to defeat overwhelm, a tracking guide for your stats, and you can also get access to the monthly deals and giveaways I send to those who are particularly interested in self-care. You also can sign up to be the first to hear about when the Starship opens because there are limited spots. You can find it all at taraswiger.com. And if you want to get those self-care specific workshops and resources, go to taraswiger.com/EO. You'll get an email with extra fun stuff. That's taraswiger.com/EO. And again, you can find links for all of this in the show notes wherever you're watching or listening, and especially by going to taraswiger.com/podcast258. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Now that I've been doing it for 5 years, I should be a pro, right? Have a much better transition than that. But the last few weeks, we have talked about time and balance and sacrificing things so you can get stuff done towards a business you want to build. And it is easy to focus on what you're taking away time from or what you're losing out on in order to be working. Maybe you have less time with your kids or less time for your hobbies or less time with your friends. But another way to think about this is to focus on what you're creating, what you are giving to the world, not what you're taking away from the world, but what you're giving to the world. Because in every bit of work you are doing right now, you are making an impact. And you might be thinking, I don't have an audience, I don't have that many followers, I'm not making an impact, I don't even have that big of a community. But you are, and in this episode, I'm going to help you see how you're making an impact and help you shift the way you've been thinking about the sacrifices you're making. So if you've been asking yourself, can I even do this? Will it be too hard on my family? Am I allowed to do this? Am I enough to do this? I want you to turn it around. The question instead is, who are you impacting by doing this? What will not doing this take away from the world? So many times we frame our dreams and our ideas in the like, am I allowed to go forward? Well, what if you framed it in, what if you don't do this? Like, the default isn't not doing anything. What if the default was you're going to work on your business? What would the downside be if you didn't do that? Because here's the thing, any amount of following something you care deeply about, any amount of following your own path in the world is going to be an inspiration to others. It's going to provide an example of what's possible. It's going to give permission to other people to follow their own path. And yes, building a business does this, but so does following any dream, following any new path, even if it's just giving yourself time to work on your hobby, or it's working at paying down your debt, or saving up for a vacation, or it's running a half marathon, or it's becoming a parent through foster care or adoption. What I have learned over the last 5 years of this podcast and the last 10 years of having a business is that everything I do has an impact on other people and can be an inspiration to them to do their own thing. Everything I do that I'm afraid of being judged for, I'm afraid of being too weird for, or I am just not sure I'm good enough to do it, other people find power in it, even when I don't understand why. Other people find that they feel more bold to do their own thing. And I want to back up even further. Here's the thing that is true just in your own life. Anything you do, positive or negative, is an example to others of what is possible. So if you're holding yourself back, you're setting an example. If you are telling yourself that you can't do X because you are not enough, that you don't have enough education, you're too big, you're too old, you don't have enough money, that is setting an example. All of the excuses or reasons or what have yous that you use not to follow your dream is setting an example for the people in your life. So when you don't do something because of reasons, you are telling other people you can't do that either. If I believed what I believed when I started this podcast, that my voice is too annoying or that I'm too fat to be on camera to have a podcast on YouTube, I would be telling other women who look or sound like me that they shouldn't do it either. When you set that standard for yourself, you're setting it for the other people in your life. So the question is not, should I do this? But what example am I setting by not doing it? What example am I setting by listening to these reasons that I'm afraid of doing it? And look, I don't say this so that you will feel ashamed by what you haven't done. I know some of you are going to take it as like, oh God, I've let that hold me back. I've been a bad example. But getting stuck in the past is not going to help anyone. I am talking about this so that you can make decisions from a new perspective, so that you can make your next decision and your next step with this new filter on it. A place where you've reframed following your dream from something selfish to something noble, something altruistic, something that is giving back to the world. So let's talk about how you're making an impact. The first thing is, when watching you build your dream is inspiring. Watching other people go after what they want is inspiring to your kids, your friends, your community. Even when you fail, you're showing the people in your life that failure is a part of it, that it is okay to fail. So many of us grew up afraid of failure, afraid of being wrong, afraid of not passing the test, afraid of having the wrong answer, that we don't realize failure is a necessary part of building anything. Learning math, failure's involved in learning math. You're going to get it wrong some of the time in order for you to get it right. Building a business involves failure. You have to get rejected before you'll have a acceptance, whether it's into a craft show or whether it's making a sale. Rejection and failure is part of it. I did a whole episode about this. We'll link up in the show notes, because I think that a lot of us are not failing enough and that we would be moving further, faster if we put more failure, if we experienced more failure, because that would mean we are putting out more opportunities. So inspiration, being an inspiration, having inspiration isn't just fun. It's vital to the process of first acknowledging and owning and then following your dreams. So without it, we wouldn't even begin to dream, to imagine what's possible. I want you to take a minute and think about the people who have inspired you to bring you to where you are right now. Whether you are in a successful business, you're just starting your business, whether you've had success in some other area of your life. Did you graduate high school? Did you graduate college? Have you kept your children alive? Are you in a successful marriage? any amount of success, there has been someone who's inspired you along the way. I want you to think about who they were. Now, your homework is to reach out to them and tell them. It is going to help spread the joy and the love of this episode if you reach out and you tell them. You can say something super simple like, thank you so much for doing X. That inspired me to take action on my own dream. And it doesn't even matter if you feel like you've accomplished your dream yet. Just telling people they've inspired you to take action is beautiful. They're going to love it. If you didn't have time to write that down, you can go over and find it in the show notes, the exact sentence. Copy it, paste it, send it to somebody. It will mean so much to them. Just fill out X with what they did that inspired you. Now, the second thing is, okay, so watching you building your dream is inspiring. It provides inspiration, but it also provides an example of what's possible. So as we're thinking about people who inspired you, I also want you to take a minute and think about the people you knew growing up. What kinds of jobs did they do and how much money did they make? Now, it's not all about jobs and money, but we believe things are possible when we see people doing it. And if you, like me, grew up surrounded by hairstylists and roofers and members of the military, and in my kid brain, the best possible job was teacher or librarian, or did you grow up knowing doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs? I didn't, so I really never even thought of med school or law school. It never even occurred to me. Even though I was a great student, I got a scholarship, the jobs never occurred to me. The best job I could picture myself having was, once I got to college and met professors, was a professor. Before that, it was like school librarian. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying I know for sure the jobs and careers I had access to in my own life shaped what I thought was possible for my own life. Now, none of these jobs are better than any of the others, but the jobs you grow up seeing are the ones you believe you can do. Maybe you grew up and moved out and you met other people like me and you thought, hey, I didn't know that was a real job for real people. Like, I didn't know normal people could do that. And that is inspiring, and that sets a new example. So then you can start going after your dream when you meet. That's what happened with me. I met an entrepreneur and I actually managed his paint your own pottery studio, and I thought, well, if I can do that and he's been this successful, I could certainly have my own business. That's it. I just had to meet somebody who was like a real person and who was honestly kind of a hot mess in order to inspire me to do my own thing. So one of the biggest obstacles I find when I'm talking to people who haven't yet started their business or started following whatever the dream is, whether it's to be a writer or a freelancer or whatever, is that they literally don't believe that it's a real job for real people. They think like, oh, maybe that girl on Instagram did it, but I bet she came from money. Maybe that guy is a successful entrepreneur, but he went to an Ivy League school. No, there are real people doing every job. And in fact, one of the things I first recommend to people who want to do something is you need to find other people who are doing it that you admire, not because you're going to copy them, but because you are going to prove to yourself that it's possible. Now, I know this may sound impossible to you with where you're feeling right now in your business and your path, but when you choose to build your non-traditional career or you choose to do non-traditional things, whatever that looks like, you are changing the examples of what's possible. You are changing the definition for other people, whether it's of what a job is or what a parent is or what a writer is. You are changing that definition for everyone in your community. And that is not just like your online audience. That's literally the people who know you. Aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors. One example from my own life that's not related to a business, because that might not be what you're working on right now, is I honestly didn't know that like how almost easy or simple it was to become a foster parent. Parenting is not simple or easy, but the process was one that you can do. And you don't have to have many resources. You don't have to own your own house. You don't have to even be in a couple. And going through the classes and meeting other foster parents is really the thing that convinced me that it's possible. And since I've started talking about it online, and if you guys haven't heard about it, I have a whole channel on my YouTube. I have a whole playlist on my YouTube, and I regularly talk about updates on it and the process in my weekly vlog, which comes out on Monday. You can go find it all on YouTube, taraswiger.com/YouTube. But in doing that, other people have messaged me to say, this seemed like, A, they might not have even known that it was a thing. B, it seemed really overwhelming or really just not possible, like not a thing that normal people did. Until they heard me talk about it until they saw what the process was. So I don't know yet if I've inspired anybody to start classes, but I've definitely got people thinking about the foster care crisis in a different way. I've got people thinking about the kids in foster care in a different way, and that's going to lead to a whole bunch of outcomes I can't even imagine at this point. Maybe it means they just step in the gap for a family who needs it, not by being an official foster parent, but just by being a resource. Maybe it means they bring more meals or do more babysitting for the foster parents in their town. Maybe it just means that when their kid befriends another kid who's been in and out of foster care, they have compassion and they understand the trauma that might be impacting the behaviors. That's just one example. You are a million examples in all the things you're doing in your life. You are an example of what's possible for other people. No matter how you feel about if you're succeeding or failing, you are an example, a really powerful, beautiful example. The other thing you're doing when you follow your own path is you are impacting the world by giving people permission to follow their own path. So you're providing inspiration, you're setting new examples, and you're giving people permission. And honey, we need so much permission. I have done episode after episode about permission. I've had conversation over conversation and done whole workshops at conferences about permission because we have been raised to wait for permission before taking action. We wait to be called on. We wait to be picked for the job out of all the applicants. We wait to be chosen by a partner or somebody we want to befriend. We wait for them to ask us out for coffee. But as you know, no one will choose you and hand you your own path, the thing you are dreaming of. No one is going to come hand it to you. You have to build it. And you get to decide what you want it to be, but you have to take action long before anyone else thinks that you can do it. Before they've decided that you're worth it and that you're valuable and that you can make something valuable, you have to decide that you can, and then you have to do it. You have to give yourself permission. Before you've been chosen for the craft show or the book deal or the magazine feature, you have to have built something to be accepted or chosen. This is the biggest mistake people make, is they think that if they were featured in O magazine or they got into this big craft show, then they'd have a business. You have to first build a business, and then you get the attention and the accolades and the recognition from others. And maybe you never do, but that doesn't matter because you're getting to do the thing you're passionate about doing. So you had to give yourself permission a lot before you even got the business up and running. To get to your biggest dreams, to where you want to be in 10 or 20 years, you're going to have to be giving yourself permission day in and day out to be not enough and still do it anyhow, to fail and still get back up, to make big mistakes and still keep moving forward. And the people around you have been trained the same way. They are waiting for someone to come in and tell them that they can do it. They are waiting for someone to choose them for a life that they really want. But they can choose themselves. Seeing you invest in yourself, seeing you spend the time and money to build your thing, it's going to give them permission to do something for themselves. So you can't choose them. They have to choose themselves. But them seeing you, give yourself permission, will give them permission for themselves. It's amazing how it works. So I just want to tell you, you are impacting your world right now. No matter how big or how small you think your world is, you are impacting it right now. You are giving permission. You are being an example. You are inspiring. You are. So I want you to think now, who in your life is being impacted by your example? Who in your life is being impacted by what you're doing? You might have been thinking about who is suffering from your sacrifices as you follow your own thing, but I want you to turn that sucker around. Who in your life is being impacted? And if you don't build the thing you want to build, if you don't lead the life you want to lead, who will be impacted by that? Who will take the message that they shouldn't follow their own thing either? Who won't be inspired? Who will still think it's not possible because they don't know anybody who did it? I want you to think about this. That's your second piece of homework. And then come tell me on Instagram. Snap a photo, post it on Instagram, and tag me and the show. I'm at Tara Swiger. The show is #Explore Your Enthusiasm. I want to see who you're impacting so I can celebrate with you and celebrate you. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you for inspiring me these last 5 years.